Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. My name is Amy Hogan, and I am Access Matters Aotearoa co-chair. I'll be the virtual host for today. Welcome to the Kōrero for Change, a webinar series brought to you by Access Matters Aotearoa Trust, with funding from J.R. Mackenzie Trust and support from Waikaha, Ministry for Disabled People. Today, the theme is education. We invite thought leaders, academia, experts, and disabled people within education, the education sector, to discuss ableism and their role in creating a more inclusive society as it relates to education. A few housekeeping aspects just before we begin. After each panel, the audience can participate via the Q&A pop-up box by submitting a question. If you need to speak or sign to pose your question, select the raise hand option to enable your audio and video. We have two options for captioning. Enable captions on the webinar screen or request a live transcription link in the chat. The webinar will be recorded and shared with participants. By remaining, you are consenting to be recorded. Now, I'm going to open proceedings with the karakia. May the peace of the sky above, of the earth below, and the all-embracing universe rise up upon all of us beholded in life. And now I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Kylie Ardbury Dawson. Kylie is the Regional Disability Leadership Advisor for CCS Disability Action Northern Region. Kylie will discuss ableisms and examples within the education sector.
Kia ora, Amy. Tēnā koutou katoa. Let's talk about ableism. So from my perspective, ableism is a concept that many people think they understand, but actually don't. So let's scratch that surface. Ashley Eisenmenger, a disability inclusion training specialist, describes ableism as the discrimination of and social prejudice against disabled people based on the belief that typical abilities are superior. It's rooted in the assumption that disabled people need fixing and defines people by their impairments. Like sexism and racism, it classifies entire groups of people as less than. It includes harmful stereotypes, misconceptions, and generalizations about disabled people. And I think from my perspective, a lot of people know what sexism is. They know what racism is, right? You know, we have this innate understanding of when we see that, we know that it's wrong. But from my perspective, when it comes to ableism, a lot of people sit there and go, that's not me. I love disabled people. I don't discriminate against disabled people. But actually, we are all guilty of it. Because with ableism, it is so rooted in our unconsciousness that we don't even realize that it's there. Yeah. We don't know what we don't know until someone tells us. And so this is why it's such a privilege to be a part of this conversation, because this is us talking about it. This is us saying, actually, let's change things. So approximately 20 years ago, I finished up what I call my mandatory education. So high school, right? And at the time, I went to the second largest high school in New Zealand. There was one accessible bathroom, and it was in the nurses' station. No matter where you were in the school, if you needed the bathroom as a chair user, you had to head all the way back around to the nurse's station to get where you needed to go. So you had to be well planned, you had to be well timed. Heaven forbid you had an accident, because there was no other way around it. You had to go around the whole school to get where you needed to go. And you hoped beyond hope that it wasn't being used for storage on any given day. Yeah. I was told by more than one quote unquote influential adult during my time within education to get on the invalid's benefit, and that's not my language, that is what it was called back then, because it would be my only source of income. It is all that I would amount to. Now, these are grown adults telling children, telling young people, this is who you're going to be when you grow up. You are going to be nothing. Yeah. Ableistic infrastructure, ableistic attitudes. Reflecting back on that, you know, I sit now with how many of my own generation now hold similar views to those influential adults, because that's what they were taught. Those were the messages that they were given 20 years ago that they now sit with and are now teaching our next generation and the next generation. I personally would like to think that things have changed, that things are different from now to 20 years ago. But when I hear things like, there's no point in putting in a lift for one student, they're only going to be here a couple of years. We're not equipped to deal with your child. We deal with problems. We don't deal with children. Or he's just so naughty, I can't handle it. Or when I hear a parent say, I just wish the specialist school would have a space because I know my child would be treated the way they deserve there. It is so disheartening. It is so disheartening, and I don't actually think we have come as far as we are led to believe. There are so many other examples that I can share, and I know many of you have your own examples to share as well. So let's move beyond the surface conversation and create some real change together, so that our next generations, my own babies, when they talk about ableism, it will be true that they say, actually, no, I don't live in an ableistic world, I live in an accessible world. Tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Thank you so much, Kylie, for sharing such valuable insights. Our next presenter is Nick Moon. Nick is the Manager of Stakeholder Relations for Workbridge. He's also an education activist and will be talking today about his experience of education legislation overseas. Thank you, Nick.
Mute is the bane of my life. Kia ora koutou, thank you, Amy. I'd just like to reflect back and thank the previous speaker, Kylie. That was a really insightful and wonderful presentation. Yeah, thank you. I've been given the opportunity to speak a little bit about our legislative environment and what we have in our legislative environment, but also about what sits outside of our environment. So I'm just going to have a bit of a discussion about what we have in Australia, the Australian standards on education, and then how that compares to New Zealand. It was interesting actually looking at what they have in Australia, because I know that those standards have been in place since about 2005, so a little while. And they do have some really interesting language, and some quite strong language on inclusion, which I think is something that we could reflect upon when we think about inclusive education. The language in the standards asks or require that schools particularly in relation to enrolment, must take enrolments for all children on the same basis as all other children. And I think that's a really interesting concept. It really asks schools to think about all children equally, which is something that we really don't think about in this country. And it's a really internationally recognized standard on the same basis is well tested in international and that's well known in civil jurisdictions and also in international treaty law. So it's a really smart way to do it. And it's a nice way to approach it. There's also really good approaches to reasonable accommodation, which goes beyond buildings, which is what we seem to spend a lot of time thinking about. Is the building available, or is the building approachable for a wheelchair or other types of things? There's so much more to reasonable accommodation, particularly things like materials in the classroom, so much more to that. So I think including reasonable accommodation in a standard, I think, is really insightful and useful. And by comparison, here in New Zealand, we have Section 34 of our Education and Training Act, which, when you read it, is a statement of intent almost. It states that all children should have the right to enter their have the same rights to enroll, attend, and receive education at the state school, at state schools as students who so it's almost a statement of intent, but as we all know, that's very difficult to actually achieve. So I think on one level, it's good that it's there, but it's about the realization of that intent, which I'm sure everyone on this call knows is very difficult to actually realize. So I'm hoping that we'll have a discussion about the impact of tomorrow's schools, because New Zealand is very different to Australia in that we have a very decentralized model, and our schools control a lot of what happens on the ground, if you like. And I think that's what separates New Zealand from Australia. And I think that's one of the real fundamental distinctions between what happens here and what happens in Australia. And I think that's really, if we want to make some real change, we need to really look at what happens in our schools and the model that drives what happens in our schools. And I'm hoping that we can have a discussion about that, really. So thank you. That's really all that I have to offer at this point. Happy to answer questions.
You muted, Amy.
With robust legislation would look like. Our next speaker is Jan, education spokesperson for the Labour Party, and will provide insight into education and inclusion. We also invited the current Minister for Disabilities and Minister for around education, but they both declined due to clashes in their schedule. Thank you, Jan.
Kia ora, Amy, and kia ora koutou. And can I say, Nick, that was a perfect segue into probably where I want to start this just little brief discussion around the fact that the system overall in education is not inclusive, but it needs to be. And one of the big reasons, exactly what Nick has just said, is that Tomorrow's School has created the most devolved education system in the world. So schools can make their own choices about their pathway around inclusion. And a bigger part for me, and it really became aware to me over and over and over again when I was minister, is that every single school, every single part of the system had a different definition of inclusion. So the definition of inclusion might have been putting that student at the centre, or it might have been that specialist schools are part of an inclusive system. And there were elements of all of that on that continuum that you could see where they were coming from that were correct and were not correct. And so we need to have that as a conversation first and foremost. What does inclusion mean? And what does it mean for the system? And how do we get to a point where we get those best practice from those schools that are delivering amazing inclusion environments within their schools and spread that across the whole of the system? Now, I'm not going to go into my thoughts right now around what has to happen, but we do need to have that very serious discussion around what inclusion looks like and putting that young person at the centre. Now, in my own time back in the sector, in education, I saw some terrible things that were happening. And the one that always comes to mind when we have these discussions is around the young person who was turning 5 and his mother came to school, and I asked her where she lived, and she lived about 50 minutes away from my school. She had to bypass 8 schools to get to me. She had been to every single one of those other 8 schools. Her young son was autistic, and every one of those 8 schools had refused his enrolment because he didn't have Oars. And I was quite shocked, which is why Nick talking about the difference in what happens in other countries is also a really big part of this conversation. That young person came to us and we welcomed with open arms, and we had a really amazing time with him over the next 6 years. I have to say he's in year 13 now, and he's about to go to tertiary education next year. And yet, originally, he had been completely isolated and rejected from many parts of the education system. And we just can't see that for our young kids. Yeah, there's a lot that needs to happen. We need to look at the system overall. We need to look at how that system works for all. We need to put in place a lot of support to our schools, because part of that reason that they do reject is because there aren't the right supports that are there. So we need to look at that, but we need to look at how they interact with other parts of the system too. We had a learning support action plan, or have a learning support action plan, but that's not enough. We need to look at how the system interacts with that learning support action plan and vice versa. There is not enough money in the system as there is now. There is not enough money to support the good parts that act in that system, and that needs to be identified and rectified. We also have done some work in recent years identifying where the main issues are in the system, such as in that highest needs review, about putting the needs of that young person and their family back at the centre. That isn't an overnight fix to get all of that implemented. That is a staged plan over a number of years. That needs to be started. We can't keep saying the system. We know what the solutions are, and we need to make sure that the solutions are starting to be enacted and put in place. at every single stage, the needs of all young people need to be front and centre, and we need to make certain that we're starting that Kylie talked about people's perceptions and how people are viewed. We need to start changing that narrative. We need to start seeing everybody as having such ability and such important part of the education system, and stop having this system that was there, I'm going to say 50 years ago, when we didn't see disabled people in the system, in the education system or in the mainstream system. We see them now, but we don't have the inclusive system for them. We need to turn that around, and we need to turn it around fast. I think really that's the main part of what I wanted to say this morning, and I'm really here to learn and to listen to where we can start working together to create a much better system going forward. Kia ora koutou.
Thank you so much, Jan, for your valuable insights. Our next speaker is going to be Shane McEnroe. Shane is from Enabling Good Lives and will share his lived experience through his schooling process.
Good, I'm unmuted. Tip one. So kia ora, I'm from the National Enabling Good Lives, based here in Otutahi, Christchurch. And John, I went to Mariho Primary, I think back in 2006. So kia ora, I guess I'm here to talk about my experience from, I guess, being at a country school in Greymouth High, where all disabled people were treated like everyone else. We got to do outdoor ed, and yeah, and we still had to get on the school bus end of the day. So this bus driver would wait for everyone. So moving to Christchurch was a huge experience when I guess the word special was more used a lot, and the word special schools were, I guess, encouraged more. And so that was a bit of an eye-opener coming to Christchurch, and special was just bandied around. But I'm not saying special schools are, I'm not anti-special schools. I guess the funding needs to more dillied up a bit, but it's just interesting, yeah. But wouldn't it be great if the Enabling Good Lives principles were sort of embedded in the education system? So easy to use, manu enhancing, relationship building. But I guess, I don't know. But kia ora, that's all for me. Yeah, happy to answer questions.
Hey, thank you so much, Shane, for your insights. Next, we're going to be going on to our panel discussion, and our first panel is around the deciders, the influence of policy and such like. The moderating this career is Sandra. Sandra is the National Executive Officer of the New Zealand Down Syndrome Association. She has dedicated the last 3 decades to disability and social justice in the disability sector, and Sandra will be introducing our panelists today.
Kia ora. It's my pleasure to introduce you to the Deciders panel, who will share their insights. This morning, we are joined by John Bangma, the New Zealand Principals Federation Executive, Dr. Claire Ahmad, Te Kai Kulmihahana Matua, the Chief Children's Commissioner, and Mana Mokopona of the Children and Young Person People's Commission, and Mark Putter, the National President of NZDI Te Reo. This morning, the panelists will respond to the question, what is the role of the education sector in the process of inclusion and belonging of people with disabilities? We'll start the discussion with John, followed by Claire, and then Mark, and we'll then invite you to participate in the Q&A session. John, would you like to open the discussion?
Kia ora koutou, ko John Bangma Takoingoa, ko Tumuaki Hau o Te Kura Mariho in Otutahi. I'm John Bangma. I am a member of the executive of the New Zealand Principals Federation, but I'm also a principal for another term and a half in Mariho Primary School in Christchurch. So whilst I do have one hat on, I have a number of hats, and I think the issue for me sits around, it's just an ongoing discussion that keeps being had over and over and over. Inclusion to me is a matter of the heart. It's not a matter of legislation that says you will do something, but nobody pulls anybody up that doesn't do the right thing. And, you know, just listening to some of the stories before, I've managed to get children into our school who are not in our zone simply because I want them in our school. They provide the most amazing opportunities for our children to learn tolerance and understanding and caring. And those children, we had a wee girl with severe cerebral palsy. She went to more birthday parties than anyone else in the class because she was just adored by the other children. No book will teach you that. So coming down on paper doesn't help. NZPF is very aware that this is a major issue, the whole issue around learning support and how much support there is or lack of it. We have 4 PO. We have one of them that is dedicated to the whole inclusive education, and that includes Māori and Pacifica because they too get a raw deal in the process that's there. It is imperative, but the issue is we don't fund it. I have 13 kaiawhina teacher aides in my school. I get enough funding for about 5. The rest of it comes out of our operational funding because I believe that it's really important that they are here to help who are not getting extra funding to support them. So our PO, and I'm part of PO Toru, which is looking specifically at that and what we can do and trying to influence being part of the learning support review. And now we're going to go through another review. How many times do we review it before we come to the decision that there isn't enough money being spent for our children out here and the needs are getting greater, the diversity is getting greater, it's just not being pushed through, I guess, and it all comes down to the mighty dollar.
Kia ora. Thank you, John. Could I hand over to Claire?
Tēnā koe, Zandra, and kia ora koutou e te whānau I huri noa I te motu I tēnei ata. Ko Claire Ackman tōku ingoa, ko ahau te kaikomi hana matua mō ngā tamariki. I'm Claire, I'm the Chief Children's Commissioner leading Mana Mokopuna Children and Young People's Commission, and it's great to have the chance to be part of this really important kōrero today. My overarching aspiration for Te Kaupapa o Te Rā is that our education system is a place where every single child and young person feels included, safe, and is able to learn and flourish to their full potential. And today I want to share 3 big whakaaro as part of my kōrero. My talk today is informed by the living experience of mokopuna me whānau whaikaha. And at the outset, I want to put on the table for us all that the education system in Aotearoa, New Zealand exists for children and young people. But the reality is that our education system is still not truly shaped by and for them. And this is a problem, and it's magnified in the lives of our mokopuna whaikaha. I also want to remind us that mokopuna whaikaha, like all mokopuna, are rights holders, and we ground our work at Mana Mokopuna Children and Young People's Commission in the Convention on the Rights of the Child, in Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and other international human rights documents such as the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. Despite being rights holders, as we've already heard this morning, too often our mokopuna whaikaha are not getting to fully experience their rights as they should. And mokopuna whaikaha have been very clear with me as their independent advocate that they want to be fully included, they want to fully belong and flourish in all of their education spaces. Alongside this, though, they have told me that we have so far to go in Aotearoa, New Zealand, in our education system to make it a place that is truly inclusive and where all mokopuna whaikaha feel that they truly belong. We've directly heard in our work, for example, from mokopuna that they have told us about the factors that will support them to learn better and to enjoy school. And these include flexibility in how they're taught, having specific resources, for example, books in Braille, the pace of learning, flexible start and finish times, and being able to choose what they wear. They've also told us how practical support, such as one-on-one help from teacher aides, can better support their learning and be the difference between being included and feeling that they belong in education or not feeling these things. The views and perspectives of mokopuna whaikaha have also been very clear as well, that too often they are not safe in our education spaces. They have told me that we are bullied, we are discriminated against, and this makes education way too difficult for us. I advocate for the education sector and all those making decisions in our education spaces to put the views and perspectives of mokopuna whaikaha central and to ensure that their views and perspectives alongside those of whānau whaikaha are what genuinely and meaningfully shape the education system. So that's the first big whakaaro that I want to share this morning. And as one mokopuna whaikaha recently shared with me, and I quote, "One thing that we've learned from health, education and disability services is the need to talk to the individual and ask them what they need. Don't treat disabilities as one experience. We are individuals with different needs." The second big whakaaro that I want to share is that we need to be paying more attention to the intersectionality that exists when it comes to supporting the educational needs and outcomes of mokopuna whaikaha. I've heard from mokopuna whaikaha and their whānau that they want to be well supported to flourish in all of their intersecting identities. For example, as mokopuna whaikaha me mokopuna Māori, mokopuna Pasifika, mokopuna Atawhai, that's care experience young people, and mokopuna Takatapui and Rainbow. This includes in our education sector, system and spaces. These spaces in our system needs to cater to the particular needs and rights of mokopuna whaikaha with intersecting identities. And it needs to start by recognising these intersectionalities and then ensuring that the systems and our educational approaches are designed intentionally with these intersectionalities in mind so that they are safe and inclusive for all. Languages and ways of communicating are another space in which intersectionality is really important for mokopuna whaikaha. And mokopuna whaikaha me whānau whaikaha have shared with me, for example, that they want education spaces where they can be fully included as both mokopuna whaikaha and mokopuna reo turi. And this means that they can fully express and feel a sense of belonging in their educational spaces. And I've seen firsthand the difference that such spaces make for the inclusion and belonging of mokopuna. The third and final big whakaaro I want to share this morning is that we will create the best outcomes when we start early, work at all levels of our education system, and take a strength-based approach. Starting early means ensuring from children's earliest years in our ECE system and services that they are oriented to be fully inclusive to meet the needs of all mokopuna whaikaha. This inclusive approach needs to flow through into primary, intermediate and secondary education so that education and school is a place where mokopuna whaikaha truly want to be and engage in. For example, when it comes to school attendance, if we are to see this improve for mokopuna whaikaha, this depends on taking an active and systematic approach to remove the barriers for learning that are faced by them. Across the sector, it's clear we need more RTLBs, more funding for mokopuna whaikaha supports, and the criteria for access to support needs to be broadened so that every mokopuna is getting the support that they need to thrive in their education. We need to strengthen focus on universal design for learning and initial teacher education and ongoing professional development. For kaiako, this is a key way that we can create a major shift in our education system that is needed. And we need to see firm commitment through an actual roadmap of action to inclusive education, as described by the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in its General Comment number 4, and recently reinforced by the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child just last year. This means that all mokopuna can be learning together in the classroom at their local school. And this is so important because the research clearly tells us that the best social and education attainment for learners with disabilities occur in these settings. I end on a hopeful note. Inclusive practice is possible, and many examples exist for us that show what can happen when we take this approach in our education sector. And I'll leave you with some final quotes, the direct perspectives of mokopuna whaikaha and whānau whakaha. In the words of one mokopuna whaikaha, their parent who has told us, and she says, "I have been to a mainstream and special needs school and now kura kaupapa, and this is the most confident my son has ever been. We had that risk of him struggling with communication in English, let alone the reo. We have brought him into an environment where he is loved. He is wrapped around by everybody. They all love him, so that has helped him to strive." And in the words of two mokopuna whaikaha who have shared with us about how their teachers have had a hugely positive impact for them, they have told us that their teacher, quote, "treats us like we kind of mean something to her and makes me feel like coming to school every day." I think that these views of mokopuna and their whānau show us what is possible, and we must now embrace the full opportunity that's in front of us so that all mokopuna whaikaha experience an education that is their right to experience and that will support them to learn, develop and flourish to their absolute full potential. Kia ora koutou.
Kia ora. Thank you, Claire, for the words of directions moving forward, but also for sharing those positive stories of what people are experiencing when they experience inclusion. I just want to remind everyone that there is the chat function. We're going to do the Q&A, so please start using that. And now hand over to you, Mark.
Kia ora, Zandra. Tēnā tātou, koe te manukura o NZI Te Reo, ko Mark Potter tōku ingoa. So I am Mark Potter, President of NZI Te Reo, one of the main unions in education in New Zealand. You know, where has my journey been in the area that we are talking today, particularly for me, it kicked in being a principal of a school. And just being so aware that our society has a long tradition of creating parking spaces for disabilities, places to put people with disabilities to get them out of the way because they're inconvenience to how society views things that should go. And our education system is an absolute integral part of that othering people with disabilities. So I found it quite frustrating as a principal with children not getting what they needed. And the problem with isms, and you find this with dealing with the system, is people who are the perpetrators of the isms can't see that that's exactly what they're doing. They just think that's how it is. So it's a real mind shift that is necessary for society, not just for schools. Schools reflect the society around them. And one of the things that comes from having parking spaces for disabled children and adults is low or no expectations of them. And that is often what you hear. Well, they'll never get to be anything. They'll never be able to do anything. You know, almost it's very patronizing. And so for me, as a principal, I felt I had to flip the situation and have high expectations of the system because it clearly wasn't meeting its responsibility in here. And we've heard talk about the rights of children. Claire's highlighted that, as have a few other people. And in my belief structure is that a child has a right to be a part of their community, an absolute right. And our society doesn't agree. And that's the sad truth about it. And we're a pretty benign society compared to others in the world, but our society doesn't believe that. And people say, Mike, that's a bit harsh. Actually, you look out there, the experience of people, that's exactly what is still going on. And there are so many isms at play here. But being part of a community means being successful as well. So, you know, if they can't succeed, then all they are is present. That's not being part of your community. So in NZI Te Aroha, I've found an organisation that has long held this inclusive thinking. So hence I've actually stepped quite into the role here around being president. I feel it's a place where an organisation that works with a lot of the different people in education who work with children with disabilities. So it's an ideal organisation to be influencing through. What we do know is that if you do put things in place, and quite a few people in the room on the screen will know this, children will succeed. They will succeed. But the things are not in place. And it's all about limitation. It's all about withholding. It's all about you can't have that. Lots of myths are thrown out. Well, if you give that to one, then they'll all want it. It's all not true. It's just not true. And the system is really, really geared to protect itself, not the children. So I find it quite rich that we've got a Prime Minister right now saying that they care about children and parents, and other organisations like ours on the screen don't. It's just beggars, you know, don't waste my time. So what we found was, and luckily in New Zealand, principals are self-managing, and so whilst that can mean some of them might close doors, it means a principal like myself and John and so on can open the doors, and we can actually say, hey, we can apply this. And so that's often, believe it or not, at the expense of your standing with the Ministry of Education, because it doesn't hold the same values. The Ministry of Education has made it quite clear to my Board of Trustees over the years that they value buildings more than they do children. But we have the advantage of being self-managing. So we've been able to put in time in the classroom for the child. So time for staff to work with the child, time for the child to do things. And that can be, the teachers have to be flexible in what they do. The accommodations can be created. It's all possible. Developing the professional knowledge and developing the knowledge in the community as well. Fundamental to what we've done in our school and successful schools is they get all the children to understand their classmate, their peer. And if they are part of that quality communication, then ableism starts to die out. And what we need to do is find the allies. We need to work with people. There are lots of people already speaking on the screen that I've known as allies through this kind of work here, because it's by doing that that we break down those barriers. And the system will take a long time. There's 17 years of law fighting against the human rights complaints, which has been there for so long. And it's just amazing how much resource will be put into blocking that, rather than getting on to saying what needs to be done. The High Needs Review findings haven't disappeared, they're still there, but just no one is acting on them. And this is New Zealand's want. We make great statements, but we won't resource, we won't budget, and we won't do anything. So NZI, we have a campaign called Ngāu Kaha, which is, it's a term gifted from a kaumātua. The Ngāu Kaha are the lashings on the ocean-going waka that hold it all together. And all the people that we need to create that inclusive education system are those lashings, and there are a variety of lashings that do a variety of jobs. And that's been our aim, and that's our strategy to bring that forward. So I'll stop there because I could go on and on and on. Kia ora.
Kia ora, and thank you, Mark. And we're going to ask some questions and you can carry on. Lots of wonderful themes that have come up, and we'll go to some questions. There's some practical ones, but before we do that, I just wanted to ask a question. You know, I think we've all explored that themes and earlier as well, is how do we change society? How do we change the system? How do we influence it by moving from those parking spaces to full inclusion and full participation, where people can say, where students can say they're thriving. So I wondered if the panel would like to just share some thoughts on that.
Well, so I'll go first because I introduced the term parking space. I think the secret is to get people to understand that those parking spaces are created. They are a box that is being applied to only certain people, and we need to see that there needs to be no box at all. Once people start to understand that and start to see people as people, every child has mana, primary, secondary, right through. Once you see that, you can't go back. And that's where we get a society that is genuinely committed to inclusion.
Thank you, Mark. Would any of the other panelists like to respond as well? Add their thoughts?
I'll build on that. So in our work at Mana Mokopuna, our moimoia, our vision is kia kuru pounamu te rongo, that all children live their best lives. And I think, you know, building on what Mark just shared, that's really what it is all about, that this is a collective effort, a collective societal shift that we need to make so that every single child, no matter who they are, is truly valued in our society, in Aotearoa New Zealand. That is the journey that we need to go on. It can be done. It seems like a huge thing, but it starts in our individual communities, and it can build into a societal shift. I think the other big thing from my perspective that will help here is that we really start to get serious about putting the views and perspectives and living experience of children and young people at the very centre of shaping the systems that affect their lives. And so when we're talking in this education space around inclusive education for mokopuna whaikaha, that needs to be designed for and with them, with their views absolutely central. They have the solutions and the ideas. We need to be alongside them to make those a reality in our education sector.
Thank you, Claire. John.
And I think, yeah, from my perspective, you know, we're role models. I have hundreds of children that have witnessed the children who are labelled as disabled because they're in a wheelchair, and see them as being just the same as everyone else, even though they can't verbalise, they can't actually do a number of the things. So we work out how can we make that happen differently for them to give them that opportunity. And it's that whole ethos of every child in this school will learn. It's up to us as the educators and the leaders in the school to make that happen. And we're not going to get that by serving same old, same old. I don't believe that New Zealand is particularly good at being told what they need to think or their attitude needs to be. But what we can do is send a whole lot of little people out of our school who will go home and challenge their parents on attitudes that they hear at home because they've been able to witness really successful opportunities to see and mix with children who their parents may consider shouldn't be there. But it's that whole attitude. And, you know, our children here, fully inclusive through 8 years of education, go to a secondary school and they're put in a unit. What's with that? Why can't they continue to be an inclusive education? It's just, yeah, there needs to be some changes given, and I guess it has to come from the top. But it would be nice if they just left. It'd be nice if they focused on that and less on changing our maths curriculum and our English curriculum and everything else known to mankind, because this, I can guarantee you, will be put on the back burner because our focus has to be on the literacy and numeracy changes that are being foisted on us yet again with a change of government. There needs to be a bipartisan, or no, a cross-party, not bi, because it's got to be cross, on education so that we can get on with the job of teaching children and they can deal with all of the other stuff that's going to make life better for our children that are at our schools.
Thank you. I think some of the things that we spoke about was about accessibility and accommodations that are needed. So we have a couple of questions around that. One is, do you feel that open plan classrooms meet the needs of all children? And it's a little bit specific, but I think it's about really that question around the reasonable accommodations that are needed so that children can learn and thrive.
I think the question there, John, you might down Christchurch, there's been quite a bit of open plans built, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And we've just finished, we're now 2 years into our collaborative learning spaces. I think the question has to be put back in, was the old system of single cell classrooms really effective for all children? And I would challenge anybody that says yes. If you didn't like your teacher, you were told by your parents, I can remember being told, never mind, it's only for a year, it's character building. No, because you've got a whole lot of adults that can be there to support. You can have people that are there to be that one-on-one support for a child who particularly needs it, but other times they don't need it and can go on and support other children in that hub. Our hubs are not barns. They have got a number of withdrawal spaces. Those withdrawal spaces are all double glazed. They have lighting that can be actually turned right down for those children that are finding the sensitivity too much. We've got some children that will wear earmuffs. It's no big deal. A lot of those children choose, and you wouldn't consider them to be a child with a particular issue, but they just choose that for their own situation. So it's a wonderful opportunity for teachers all to be able to give their best and make the most of what they can. And I would hate to go back to single cell classrooms for our school, because our teachers work collaboratively, our children work collaboratively, and it's taken away from that because your parents procreated at a certain time will put you into this room with a teacher and shut the door. It's far more broader opportunities in what we can provide.
If I could just add on to that, what John's saying there, I think single cell open plan, what it really comes down to is what was the design thinking that went into this learning environment. Yeah. So whether it's single cell or whether it's open plan, that's not the question. The question is this learning environment designed with the children in mind? And given that children come in such a variety, how flexible will the learning environment be? So an open plan, collaborative environment can be ideally suited if it's set up well. A single cell system also can be. And by the way, single cell doesn't mean teachers don't collaborate, by the way. So it's about the thinking that goes into what makes an inclusive environment for a child. John's example, they thought about the sound, where you find a lot of them where it doesn't work very well, it's because there was no thinking put into that aspect. I had one principal from Christchurch. I said, what would you do differently if you had to start all over again? He's one of the first, the new builds down there. He said, I'd forget about the architects, I would start with a sound engineer. So it's the thinking that goes into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I want to just go on to questions. One of the things that came up very strongly is rights, and Article 24 really does talk about the rights to education, and we know that that's not happening. But there is a question here around, you talk about education here, but not a mention on early childhood. Do you include ECE in education? And, very sadly saying that children are already being excluded and discriminated against, even at such a young age. So I thought we should clarify that.
So, yeah, I'll jump in on that one there, because ECE is very dear to our heart, because a lot of our members are early childhood educators and or support workers in early childhood. And so we do know that the system has over many, many years had barriers of children accessing support in early childhood, let alone carrying that through, as if the change from early childhood to compulsory sector suddenly cures everything. And so there's part of all the pitfalls that have been there for a long, long time. We do know from the parents of children in ECE, and we know from people who work in learning support in the ministry in ECE, how difficult it is to get what the child needs in time for their development as they go through. And it's something that was said to me by Etta Bollinger. I think she said, she's someone who's been right through the system, right up through university, out through tertiary. And she said, my needs have changed as I've gone through different educational settings, but the system doesn't seem to flex with me as I go. So early childhood is a critical area. And so many children haven't had what their rights should have been in early childhood. And then that becomes an accumulative impact on them as they go through their schooling.
And if I can just add we know that with Enabling Good Lives, starting early is so essential. I know, Claire, you brought that up as well when you spoke. So it's really important to ensure that inclusion starts young, and that accommodation is provided so that children can thrive. The other question, because we close to closing time, that I just think we really need to bring through is a theme around kapa Māori education sector and making sure that Mokopuna can, Waikai can access education in their reo, and that is not sacrificed, and a real concern around not all educators are open to this or have the training, as Claire, you mentioned, so important that there's professional development in all areas. So I wonder if there's any comments for deciders on how we ensure that that happens so that there's full inclusion.
I feel like I've talked a lot, constantly. But Claire, there's the rights of Indigenous children as well.
Yeah, exactly. I would just say that the system and the sector needs to be intentional about upholding all of the rights for mokopuna whaikaha, and so for mokopuna Māori who also are in these spaces, their rights under Te Tiriti o Waitangi need to be the starting point, together with their rights under the Convention on the Rights of the Child and the CRPD, and taken together. All of those human rights documents make very clear that mokopuna whaikaha should experience their full range of rights, and that includes all of their cultural and reo and whakapapa rights. So it's fair to say that we've still got a long way to go. However, we do see in our kura kaupapa Māori and in our Māori immersion ECE spaces some very hopeful, amazing practices that have been created despite the barriers in the system. They show what's possible, but we now need to really break down those barriers so that much more of that can be experienced by all mokopuna Māori whaikaha.
Thank you. There's one question which is probably a challenging one to end with, and not on a positive, but it's a real thing, and it leads also to the theme that came up around bullying and not feeling included at school, being excluded. So one of the questions was keen to hear thoughts about suspensions and exclusions for many young whaikaha who experience that with and without diagnosis, and what do we do to change this?
I think there's a lot of work been going on, and my colleagues here on the panel would agree, to get people more open-minded, so that the old ideas, you used to be able to just, for having a puff on a cigarette, bang, you're gone. That doesn't value a person's education. And often people with disabilities, children with disabilities, it's not understanding their needs that lead to the situation that has them suspended. So, and it's that old adage, particularly when you're talking about things such as ADHD, anxiety with disabilities, is every behaviour is communication. And if people are better informed, we are less likely to have those kinds of suspensions happening. And usually it comes from lack of knowledge.
Yeah, and again, it's coming down to attitude. I haven't suspended a child or excluded a child from our school probably for the last 10 years. We just don't do it. They're ours, and we work damn hard to actually keep them in our school, and that's the whole range of everything that's there. So stand downs we do use because it draws a line in the sand, and it allows us to take another step in terms of getting the whānau on board and having that kōrero with them around what might need to happen next. But shifting a problem doesn't solve the problem. It just shifts it to somewhere else. And often those children are actually out of school, maybe even for up to a term before another school's prepared to take them. So, yeah, it's not something that I want to use. It can be there, but we have not many tools left because there's a whole lot of things that aren't able to be done anymore, thank goodness. But yeah, it certainly comes with its challenges.
Yeah, I am aware of time, and there's still lots of questions that people want. So I wondered if the panelists had time, if we collated all those questions and sent it to you, whether you'd be able to respond to those questions after the panel discussion. Thank you so much for all your contributions and your insights, and just want to pull out some threads before we go. One is definitely rights-based. So important that the attitudes are about inclusion, making the accommodations so that people can thrive, and that every child has the right to be at school, their local school, and to get those accommodations so that they can learn. So thank you very much to all our panelists this morning. We appreciate those discussions.
What a great panel and so much to think about. Our next panel and its moderator is Sean Prenter, who is the president of the Disabled Students Association, and he's going to be moderating the thinkers section of the panel. Thank you, Sean.
Atamarie and tēnā koutou, ko tamatu, tama ora, tama moe, tama mate. No korori aho, ko Lao Bay Takakainga, ko Sean Takeingawa, kai te ora aho, kai te National Disabled Students Association. So I'm here today to facilitate around the question, what is the role of the education sector in the process of inclusion and belonging with disabled people? So before we get into that and before I announce our fantastic panelists for today, I'll give some background to this question. So fundamentally, we're here because education is a right. By extension, it means disabled students have a right to education. Inclusive education, as defined by the New Zealand Disability Strategy, ensures that all students are actively engaged and, pardon me, apologies for the speed, too much coffee this morning, it would seem, are actively and achieve through participation, learning, and a sense of belonging. It encompasses creating an environment where local schools and educational services, including early childhood and tertiary education, are welcoming and supportive. This means trained teachers who believe and support students' progress and academic practices that respect and utilize students' diverse communication needs, such as New Zealand Sign Language. Inclusive education also emphasizes the importance of smooth transitions and ongoing support to help students succeed in their individual pathways. So today, I'm joined with the fantastic Dr. Vijaya Dharam, the Associate Professor and Director of Academic Programs at the Institute of Education at Massey University. Dr. Jude MacArthur, Senior Lecturer of the School of Critical Studies at the University of Auckland. Ms. Morton, Professor of Disability Studies and Inclusive Education at the University of Auckland, and Dr. Jill Rutherford, the Affiliate Senior Lecturer of Education and Disability Studies at the University of Otago. So having introduced our fantastic panelists, I'm then going to pose the question to our panelists. What is the role of the education sector in the process of inclusion and belonging of people with disabilities? And if Dr. Vijaya could please kick us off, that would be fantastic.
Kia ora, Sean. Tēnā koutou kua homai nei I tēnei rā. Ko Vijaya tāku ingoa, kei te papaioia noho ana au, kei te kura te mataranga au mahi ana. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā ano tātou katoa. A huge thanks to all the parent advocates who have been and will continue to be my teachers in the mahi I do, and my fellow panel members whose expertise I value really greatly. So tēnā koutou katoa. So the question about I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that education is the strongest vehicle, and it has a mandate to dismantle epistemic, participatory, and testimonial injustice of ableism and normativity. And I use those three in terms of injustice that has been borrowed by Miranda Fricker, who said it in 2007. So in my opinion, education has to ethically, morally, and legally challenge dominant discourses of ableism and normativity. Create safe spaces for everyone to unlearn, because I think right at the beginning, Kylie said it is so embedded that, and all of us are guilty of it. I think education needs to provide the space to unlearn and learn that what makes and to make epistemic shifts in understanding ableistic harm, and I call harm with a capital H. And education can strategically scale up capabilities and capacities by joining the dots from legislation to policy and practice. And I think we've heard about legislation, and it was heartening to hear that I'm building upon what the deciders have touched upon as well. So I think I am joining up a little bit over there as well. And as from a tertiary, from my research hat, moving on to and also engaging just in emancipatory research activities on what works. And I use the word education also has to militantly foster learning communities of practice that includes primarily children and young people, as our Children's Commissioner has said, with disabilities and their families, alongside schools, health, and other services. If we are to truly, truly enable good lives, as enabling good lives where all three words are really, really important. It is not just bound by the school gates. And I think Mark Porter alluded to the community aspect, which I'll come to. This does not mean that some of the things are not happening. As Jan Tinnity said, we do have pockets of excellent practice, but we are not able to share it due to a number of reasons. But surely we know we need to do more and do things differently to create a more inclusive society and schools. As part of doing better, I want to emphasize that epistemic dimensions of inequality and exclusion transcends the boundaries of what I call small e, which is education, formal schooling, and classrooms. Education with capital E is bigger than schools. I would like to draw attention to Peter's definition in his book, Ethics in Education, nearly 60 years ago, where he notes that education involves the idea that something worthwhile is changed about a person that would not have occurred through purely natural development and growth. To me, this quote means that education has the power to bring about transformative changes. And I know that there's a lot of focus on initial teacher education and beginning teachers, but I want to strongly argue that they are just a part of a bigger picture that needs to be addressed. Unless we join the dots, focusing on beginning teachers alone, in my humble opinion, is not going to result in inclusive classrooms. For disabled people to have a wholesome, meaningful life from childhood to adulthood highlights the importance for tertiary institutions where I'm based to have this mandatory role to ensure that all students in higher education have a critical understanding of the harm caused by ableism and normativity, alongside with other intersectionality, and I think which the Children's Commissioner talked about, factors such as race, socioeconomic status, etc., for not only schooling, but for society as a whole to move to a space of epistemic inclusion. As Rogers Lee noted in his UNESCO monitoring report, reconceptualizing the construction of disability, ableism, and exclusion is of critical importance, and education does have a pivotal role. More importantly, as part of our commitment and obligations to the Tiriti principles and articles, we must at all times be mindful of the cultural intersectionality where all the three forms of injustice, namely epistemic, participatory, and testimonial, have been rife and continue to be so. And education has an ethical and moral imperative towards creating this epistemic justice for those with disabilities and marginalized. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you so much, Dr. Vijaya, for kicking us off there. And what a great start it was. I think specifically talking about EGL does not stop at the school gates. And it's often something that we compartmentalize and separate out and silo different parts of life. When in reality, we signed up to the UNCRPG and disabled people have rights. And that goes straight through to from education to the workforce and beyond. So without further ado, I will pose that same question to Missy Morton, the Professor of Disability Studies and Inclusive Education at the University of Auckland. Over to you, Missy.
Kia ora koutou, ko Missy Morton tōku ingoa. I'm the person on the left in this tag team here. So I'm picking up the question and rephrasing it ever so slightly to what kind of society do we want to live in? And what's the role of education in creating that society? And that second part of it, what's the role of education, is something that is highly contested every 3 years. So even though we might not have explicit discussion about what kind of society we want, the shift in focus of our curriculum and assessment process clearly signals a different kind of society to the one that we want, one that's feeling a lot less inclusive to me. Thank you for putting us in the thinkers slot. I just also want to expand that definition a little bit and say that I think all four of us would probably agree with this claim that we are thinkers that work very closely with educators, with students, with whānau. And all of our research is grounded in their experiences. And I'll come back to that a little bit later, particularly when we're talking about teacher education. I just want to take a quick step back out and say how this also impacts on my work in the tertiary education system. We run a small group called Imagining the Anti-Ableist University. And we kind of set that up to be in parallel with the decolonizing projects that were going on in our university. So this is the intersectional element that everybody has talked about. And part of that is sort of asking questions like, why are there always arguments about what's a reasonable accommodation? And making the point that we only ask for accommodations because we're trying to address the barriers that are baked into the system. So we wouldn't need to ask for any kind of accommodations if we were able to remove the barriers that everybody thinks are just normal practice and can't possibly be changed. We've since moved a little bit from imagining the anti-ableist, not because we're done, but again, taking a leaf from our Māori and colleagues in particular. They talk also now about indigenizing the university. So decolonizing the university and indigenizing the university. And so for us, we're talking about an anti-ableist institution and how do we crip the curriculum? And by cripping the curriculum, we're talking about disability-led, focused, at the foundation of everything we do. But that's another quarter for another time. Okay, so our jobs as thinkers mixed in with the doers give us the luxury of a helicopter view and digging more deeply into what we've learned by our work and with and from teachers and doing thinking into our own teaching, including initial teacher education and professional learning. Our postgraduate students are both new and experienced teachers, and that gives all of us opportunities for further cycles of joint learning and teaching. This research-informed teaching is unique to university initial teacher education programs. The ability to look up, out, and beyond the immediate early childhood education and classroom practice is essential if we're going to make the kinds of change that we need to transform the system. So here I'm saying that here's a part of the education sector that has been, much like the rest of us, seriously undervalued and underfunded for far too long. If we want to change the education system and we're concerned about the experiences that new and experienced teachers have, we have to make it possible for people to participate in a system that's well-resourced and the research is also part of the ongoing process. Like others, I would say that we don't have an inclusive ed system. We might have some practices, we've got some pedagogies, we've got some pockets of absolute brilliance and excellence. But I think we're also stuck. We can't figure out how to move away from segregated services. And if this Royal Commission of Inquiry has taught us nothing else, that segregated services lead to, they create the opportunity for abuse to occur. I'm making it clear, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody or any particular place as saying this is a current practice, but the potential is there. I think we're stuck, and I say we're possibly going backwards, and this is my take on the why. When we started the process of introducing inclusive education formally in New Zealand, and inclusive pedagogies and inclusive schools existed long before the 1989 Education Act. We built aspects of that act on our experiences with schools and early childhood settings, communities that were already inclusive. But when we set it up, we had a mantra that we would do inclusive education one child at a time. And I think we put that out there because we didn't want to scare the horses, right? We wanted to assure early childhood centers and schools and teachers that, we weren't going to cause any problem by bringing these kids in. It'd be okay. We'll manage it for you. The specialists will take care of it all. We'll walk alongside you. But doing things one kid at a time is no way to change a system, right? Because it's not a systemic approach. We talked a lot about personalized learning. We talked about individualized funding. It's all done one kid at a time, one teacher at a time. And again, that doesn't sort of build up the momentum for the kind of transformation that we need. So as a consequence of all of this one kid at a time, we spent a lot of energy working around that ethos. We spend a lot of time supporting schools who are looking at things as collective responsibilities, shared responsibilities. We're all in this together. So I think that's the transformation that we need to move away from this one person at a time as if that's going to solve the problem. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Missy. Thank you so much for your very thoughtful response there. And I love the way that it built on Dr. Vijaya's start there in thinking about the epistemic and structural roots and how the reality that has come to be has its roots in that legislative framing. And that comes down to the idea of accommodation. At a conference recently, we were challenging that idea of accommodation to adjustment because implicit in that is similar to the idea of disclosing as though I'm hiding my disability with accommodation, as though you need to sort of tinker at the edges as opposed to being truly inclusive and universally accessible. So kia ora for that fantastic contribution. So on to our next panelist to answer this question is Dr. Jude MacArthur, the Senior Lecturer for the School of Critical Studies at the University of Auckland. Over to you, Jude.
Tēnā tātou katoa. Nā ko o tupote te whenua tupu, kei te makimikoro aho e noho ana. Nā ko Jude MacArthur Tukaingoa. Thank you very much for the invitation and for calling us a thinker. I hope we can live up to that reputation for you today. I just wanted to answer the question really by drawing on the words that came out in some of your materials advertising this seminar today. And inclusive education is a collective effort in which we all play a part. I'm a primary teacher from way back. I started my career as a primary teacher in Dunedin and have spent quite a few years since then working in teacher education and education studies, but also spending a lot of time sitting in schools with families and whānau in difficult meetings where their disabled child was really not having a good time. I want to just really zoom in now a little bit from Missy's talk and on a positive note, kind of identify how we might continue to work in the area of teacher education to really support an inclusive education system. So I really just want to talk to you about some of the ideas that we use in our own teacher education now and try and sort of flip the discussion to, the possibilities here. First of all, it is the responsibility of teachers to be part of this movement towards a more inclusive society. And our work with teachers and experienced teachers, as well as initial teachers who are just training to be teachers, we really focus on getting our students to be critical thinkers. And particularly that means recognising and questioning practices in education that look and feel exclusive. So we work hard to try and get our teachers to understand ableist and deficit thinking about disability that sits behind some of the practices that they see out there in classrooms. And to see the thinking and practices, that kind of thinking and practices as barriers to children's belonging and learning. But also, we want teachers to have knowledge of a different, more inclusive way of thinking and working. and also to have the confidence to demonstrate that through their own practice. And I use that word confidence deliberately here because we know that we still have very persistent structures of special education in segregated special schools, which, I think we need to be clear, still promote outmoded ways of thinking that associate disability with pathology and the need for separate approaches in education. And so I mention this because we train our teachers in a sort of a bizarre system, really, where we still have that bifurcation between special and regular, and we need to keep understanding that that is part of the problem. But that's another story for the moment. We also know that we've got very poor resourcing of our local schools, and that's been referred to by several panellists today. This is a significant issue of ongoing concern that's been referred to already by Kylie and John and Claire. What's our starting point? We're talking about not just learning care, but also belonging, and that's a word that many of the panellists have mentioned today. We need to understand that learning for every single child is a social, relational, and interactive process, and that is exactly why children need to be in their local school community. It needs to be relevant to their lives, to their culture as Māori, to their experiences, to their whānau, to their identities, and that includes a disabled or neurodivergent identity. The other starting point is our understanding that every child is valued as a capable learner. And I just wanted to thank Claire for her beautiful articulation of children's and young people's experiences, because that absolutely has to be our starting point. So what can learning, teaching and the curriculum look like when that is our starting point? And I really just want to draw here on the Māori and Pacific frameworks that we use in our own teaching, on what we call inclusive pedagogies that comes from our colleagues in the Northern Hemisphere, and also the neurodiversity paradigm. And all of these have really influenced the way I think about teacher education now. 3 principles. And here I draw on my own confidence from the schools that we have worked with, where we see these things in practice. First of all, we need to expect and value diversity in our school communities. We want our teachers to understand that diversity is an essential aspect of the human condition. It's what makes our school communities really strong and interesting. Secondly, teachers have to believe that they are qualified and capable of teaching all children. We really need to resist this idea that there is a thing called special education where we do different things to some children. Every child, as a teacher, is my responsibility. As teachers, we also need to keep working on creative new ways of working with other people. Collaboration is the heart of inclusion. Children, teachers, whānau and professionals need to be able to work together to support children's learning and belonging well. The idea of inclusive pedagogies mean that we no longer think of any child as having fixed ability, but rather every child is capable, and what I do as a teacher today is going to make the difference for them both today and in the future. When there are difficulties that arise in the classroom, the problem is not in the child. It is in the context of my classroom, it's in my thinking and in my actions. This then becomes a dilemma and a professional challenge for me, and it will make me a better teacher for every single child in my classroom in school. And I just want to finish with a comment that Vonnie raised in the chat about the education system being politicised. It's been a real honour for me to be part of a bicultural and inclusive working group that worked on the refreshed curriculum Te Mātai Aho. This work has a very solid bicultural foundation and a foundation in our obligations and responsibilities to Te Tiriti o Waitangi. The values and uniqueness and diversity of every learner are beautifully written about in that document. And I think we need to be celebrating that. But my question is now, where has it gone to? We have a refreshed curriculum which is designed for all children and young people that will ensure their right to belong and flourish in high quality learning experiences. So I think we all need to be alert to the current political environment that we are operating in, which appears to have made Te Mātai Aho diminish in terms of its visibility on our Ministry of Education website. Tēnā tātou katoa.
Kia ora, Missy. Pardon me. I was looking there at the at your screen. It's a bit of a confusing one with you sharing. Kia ora, Dr. G. That was a fantastic insight there, and I think it starts to shape this conversation to think about the more concrete on the ground realities as we've moved through this panel from the higher up thinking for legislation and policy, which is of course important, but then thinking how we're training and upskilling our teachers to be confident and equipped for providing universally accessible and inclusive education for our disabled students. So I now finally pose this question to Dr. Jill Rutherford, the Affiliate Senior Lecturer for Education and Disability Studies at the University of Otago.
Kia ora, Sean, and kia ora koutou. Thank you very much for having me. And I hope I've thought enough for you to have something to listen to that makes sense. But I'd also like to acknowledge the organisers of this hui and all my teachers as high school, from my work as a high school teacher, the students who taught me and the student teachers who have taught me invaluably in my years in teacher ed. And students are the heart of our mahi. And so I'd like to give their words space to begin with. One student said, I would make sure that every child gets treated fairly, regardless of their disability. I would not let any teacher make them feel as if they were less than a human being. It's troubling to think that tamariki and rangatahi may feel that they are less than a human being within an education that's supposed to set them up for life. Or is it? This begs the question, what's the actual purpose of education? And it has many answers, but I'm drawing on a Scottish educator who was born in 1891, so he's no longer with us, but he believed that education is a means of learning to be human, to lead good lives together in community as an interdependence of equals. He claims that our ability to enter into fully personal relations with others is the measure of our humanity. And if we fast forward to Roger Slee, who's already been mentioned, and his often asked question, thank you, Missy, what kind of world do we want to live in? He views education as an apprenticeship in democracy, that education is not only a right in and of itself, but also a means of developing rights-bearing citizens. Democracy, however, has its shortcomings, as we are all too aware of currently. So I'm suggesting that we go a bit further and think of education as an apprenticeship for democracy and humanity, for learning to live well together and to live our best lives. And if we accept this, then we need to address disconscious ableism. Disconsciousness was a term coined by Joy King in 91, and she describes it as an uncritical habit of mind that accepts the existing order of things as given. So, of course, special needs students should go to special schools. Of course, that's just the way it is. And then a couple of other researchers, Laubani and Broderick, have built on that idea of disconsciousness, and they refer to disconscious ableism. And they describe it as the limited understandings that our students and teachers may hold about the nature of inequity related to disability ability. And obviously, as Mark has pointed out, it's about all of the isms that are entrenched in our world today. One way of addressing this I think about, is to implement an unteach ableism initiative that can be used within initial teacher education and professional development for teachers and principals. And some of the components that could encompass an unteach ableism initiative would be moving away from or unlearning special needsism in terms of its structures, policy, practices, and language. Learning anew the positive interpretation of disability within a rights-based framework, using as our starting place for teaching and learning the presumption of competence, that teachers need to believe that every student can learn, providing teachers provide them with the opportunities in which they can reveal and further develop their competence. It's also about knowing about the Disability Convention, Article 24. Jude did a study, or one of her students did a study in which they looked at what do teachers, particularly beginning teachers, know about Article 24, and the results were disturbing, if I could put it that way. How can we teach and enact what we don't know about? Curricular justice, being visible in the curriculum and in the resources that we use. And then body, like as has been mentioned, UDL, and the effective utilisation of the support staff that we couldn't do without and could do better by. So I'd like to close with another student's perspective. Inclusion to me means that people accept you for who you are. Every person should be included because it's important to feel a part of something. So being able to freely and proudly be who you are in all aspects of your humanity, and to belong to an ableist-free community, an interdependence of equals, isn't just wishful thinking. It's entirely doable if we're able to dismantle ableism and support people to shift their thinking to realise new possibilities. Kia ora, thank you.
Kia ora, Jill. Thank you so much for your contribution there. Hopefully, the audio is a bit better there. I know that the sign language interpreters were struggling slightly with the audio there, so my hope is that's improved. But Jill's expression is drawing concern.
Sorry.
It's worse?
I just said sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, no, you're fine. This was for me. Audio, not yourself. That I was just explaining the earmuffs now. So, thank you so much to all of our panelists there, and Jill just now to highlight the framing on unlearning special education. I think is so poignant and also brings us round. I think in circle, highlighting the insights of all of our panelists here, thinking about the legacy that special education has left and how the language is still seen in legislation through to policy and the effect that has had on the ground. So we're now going to move into the question section of this panel. And the first question we have is from Anne Whittle, of whom I will just note to spotlight for New Zealand Sign Language interpretation.
Sorry, what was the question, Sean?
So I'm just having that interpreted now as Anne is a New Zealand Sign Language user.
Interpreter cannot see, and apologies.
Oh, okay. So you're not able to see the answer, is that right?
Sorry.
That's okay. Not to worry.
Scott
So
may
we
be
can
able to sort it. No, maybe not.
not to worry though. That's okay. We can move into other questions.
Apologies.
That's okay. Whilst we're working that out. So
Could Anne
a
possibly
question.
put a question in the chat?
Actually, just basically, she's just talking a lot about the funding and having the same equality for deaf students as hearing students, and just looking at all the levels and assessments. Just getting her to carry on there.
Thanks, Scott.
That is, she's sorry, just looking at the interpreter. Just getting, sorry about this. We're just trying to get her to carry on. Okay, so sorry about the technical glitch there. She's just going to go back and repeat that question for you. Okay, so just bear with us. So, yeah, I'm part of Deaf Action here in New Zealand. And for deaf children, just looking into a bit of research, there's lots of sort of language deprivation, and they seem to be behind. They are sign language users and also go to deaf school, where there are deaf teachers. If I look at what's happening in Australia, and when they come to assessing the child and testing to see how their mind works in regards to language and sort of knowledge gaps and so forth, and just trying to put the child on the same par as a hearing person, then for the deaf child, I think when it comes to their identity, the culture and language, it's very sort of English influenced. As they learn sign language, they have a good understanding of that language, and then that can also help their understanding of English as well, and sort of get them up to the same level as hearing people. Also, when they do head off to university, there's an issue of trying to get an interpreter to come and relay what's happening in the lectures, or also when they go out into the real world. So that can be a bit of a barrier for them. And again, we talked about not having enough funding as well, and not accepting children who are out of zone. So I think some of the staff in those schools just don't have an awareness of deaf children and how to work with them. A lot of children are placed within mainstream schools, and there's no sort of provision for them, and no one's aware how to work with those deaf children, so they tend to fall through the gaps. And it also leads to not the best language acquisition for them because they've missed out on their education. Okay, thank you. That's all I wanted to say.
So I think the question that Anne's provoking, it seems to me, is how can we make mainstream schools more inclusive for deaf students, and how can we overcome funding barriers that may exist within that challenge? Who would like to take up that question?
I think I'll have a go first because I put the point of learning communities. And I think this is where it is so important that schools are not silos, and they're not just, a school is not a physical building, and the needs of students in their local schools needs to be catered if we have a learning community of teachers and families and teachers with the expertise. And I know there are a lot of resource teachers of hard of hearing and deaf, who rather than, the child going to a special school per se for these children. If all these children were part of a learning community, I think that could be more inclusive because they can choose. It should be like a revolving door where they get what they need and whenever and be alongside their peers. I think this is doable, and I'm sure some of the deciders will agree as to how that can be possible if we create learning communities within the local schools over there. And I just want to go back to even when we talk about policies and everything, I think there has been an exhaustive Tomorrow School review, which very strong recommendations, and I'm about an education hub, but not even going there, but even specifically pulling the recommendations in there is this notion of creating of schools, and the expertise that are there working together to support all children. And I think that's where I come from. Anyway, I'll let others talk.
I'll have a go. Thanks, Anne, for the question. It links into some of the other questions that are in the Q&A around resourcing and funding and decision-making around that, and how the resources tend to be captured in some places. And so the question's gone now, but it was around how do we do a better job of sharing the resources that currently are captured in just a few of the places, like special schools are but one example. And I want to come back to my point around the way we've individualized everything, the interpretation of that has been around, for example, attaching interpreters or teachers' aides or other kinds of specialist teachers to the child with the label, rather than saying, what resources does this place, space, community of learners need so that everybody can participate within that? So it's kind of flipping the question in terms of what are we resourcing? Who are we resourcing in order to succeed? I don't, Jill, do you want to say anything about that with your kind of linking it into your research around teacher aides roles in secondary schools?
I'm just going to, thank you. It's a big question, and I agree with what Vijaya and Missy have said. I think there is hope in that. I know that there's some great work being done in Otago by advisors for the deaf and who are going into schools and supporting children and teachers. And there's also some really good work happening at the university level. We are extremely poorly served in Otago in terms of the number of interpreters. We might have 2 interpreters. So I think there's an awfully long way to go. And I know that's not an answer that you probably appreciate, sorry.
So I will have to cut in there, just looking at time, and as we knew with the packed schedule today, we do have that time constraint for the panel today. So I'll have to draw our questions to a close there, but the questions are of course in the chat, and I encourage the panelists within their own capacity to think about those questions, and perhaps that's something we can circulate out to everyone. But without further ado, just to wrap up, I think for me, something that really came through from this panel was thinking about Dr. Vijaya's comment that enabling good lives does not stop at the school gate. We have this siloed and separate way of thinking, and we're here because education is actually a right that's recognised within New Zealand's own legislation. And so I think it's so crucial for us to then carry that truth to then build the community and the supports away from an individual way of framing, where we're viewing a more collaborative approach as opposed to this top-down approach that we have become used to. So with that, I would like to offer a big round of applause for Dr. Vijaya, Miss Morton, Dr. Jill Rutherford, and our other panelists today. Thank you very much, everyone.
What an excellent panel. We are now due for a 10-minute break. So if we could all come back at 10:53 or thereabouts, we'll be there for our third panel. Thank you so much. Welcome back to the Corridor for Change. Our third speaker is Jaden, our third panel convener is Jaden, who is a psychology student and a dedicated para-athlete. He is going to introduce our speakers for the third panel, the creators. Thank you, Jaden.
Thank you, Amy. Kia ora, koutou katoa, ko Jaden Tokuingoa. I have the absolute honour of helping out with the third panel of this morning. So I'll quickly introduce our panelists first. Firstly, we have Fran Wadia, an early intervention specialist at Autism New Zealand. We have Jeremy Drummond, Executive Officer for SPELD New Zealand. We have Kathy Pohl, Resource Teacher of Learning and Behaviour Manager for North Shore Cluster for RTLB. And we have Rachel Grant, Resource Teacher of Learning and Behaviour Manager for Tawhetu or Akarona Cluster 7 RTLB. So today we'll be discussing the topic of what is the role of the education sector in the process of inclusion and belonging of people with disabilities. So firstly, I'll pass it over to Fran, and followed by Jeremy, then Kathy, then Rachel. So Fran, do you want to go first?
Kia ora. Thank you, Jaden. Lovely to be here. I'll quickly introduce myself. So, ko kushu me kayan me Zeus aku tamariki, ko Burson tokutane, ko Frian Wadia tokuingwa, no tamaki makaura ahau. So I'm a parent of 3 fabulous boys, Kushu, Kayan, and Zeus. My husband and me live in Auckland. I am a creator, not by choice, but because of need and necessity. So my 3 boys have a range of different disabilities, and it is through them that I have learned and grown in terms of how do I support them best? How do I ensure inclusion for them? So everything I bring, you know, what I've learned along my journey with my children and also with other families, really important. I am a early intervention specialist with Autism New Zealand. Again, it's a role I've taken on because I used to be an EC teacher and did so much with my children. So moving on, our journey has really necessitated that we fight for inclusion for our children over the years. And what I have learned is the role of education towards enabling inclusion and belonging is not only critical in the education space and sector, it is critical for the long-term outcomes for our children. And so this is something that really sits heavily with me as a parent. Every decision I make, you know, am I making sure that I am allowing for that inclusion to happen? And when I face barriers, how am I actually, you know, navigating them? And how hard can I fight as a parent, to be very honest? That's the challenge that parents have. So why is it so important? It's important because schools are a microcosm of our society. You know, this is the birthing place, I like to call the incubation of good citizenship, inclusive citizenship, creating those diverse communities. When our children sit alongside our children, you know, who are disabled, and see them being valued by the adults around them, see them being well supported, then they move on, I would like to hope, into being, you know, employers, holding all sorts of spaces in the workforce, who then can also learn to be inclusive themselves and be welcoming to our disabled people. So it's really, really important I cannot emphasize enough that, you know, it has long-term impacts on our children. That's one thing. The other thing that I want to highlight here is also the fact that ECE is really, really crucial in terms of setting up those secure attachments for our children, safe spaces for them to be who they are. And once that happens, as our kids move into the schooling space, you can also have, I say, the luxury for our children then to explore their self-identity and be authentically who they are as individuals. So if inclusion and belonging is enabled in the education sector, then our disabled children can grow into adults who are, sure of their self-identity, they're confident in who they are, and they can value themselves. Others can value them, come from that strengths-based, mana-enhancing perspective. So it's really, really important to, again, look at where and how within the education space we are allowing for those basic fundamental needs of attachment and authenticity to be enabled for our disabled tamariki. And lastly, I want to actually talk a little bit about the shifts that are needed in the education system. And the shifts that I see are really critical are moving away from the fix-it mentality to a more strengths-based mana-enhancing mentality to make sure that inclusion and belonging happens. The other thing is moving away from viewing our kids as needy, as, being seen as a burden, to a rights-based approach where it is the responsibility of the education sector to ensure that inclusion and belonging happens. So you're shifting the perspective again. The other thing is preventing trauma and making sure that we are actually removing the barriers, the ableism, the discrimination that causes trauma. And this is something that doesn't get talked about. As a parent, I have been through the process. And when I broke down, I actually realized how poorly, the system supports our children to be in the educational spaces and to ensure their well-being and for them to thrive. So how do we, oops, that's my timer going off. So how do we actually ensure the inclusion for our children and make sure their well-being, their holistic well-being, their holistic identity is being supported in the education space? Lots of questions there, but yeah, happy to carry on the conversation later on. I'll just conclude over here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I got a lot out of that. Next, we'll go to Jeremy.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Jeremy Drummond toku ingoa. Thank you very much for having me here today, and I'm speaking to you from the perspective of the neurodiverse community. I'd like to share our guiding whakatauki, ko te ahure o te tamaiti arahia o tātou mahi. Let the uniqueness of the child guide our work. I'm the Executive Officer of Spelled New Zealand. We're a not-for-profit that supports individuals with specific learning disabilities. I'll shorten that to SLD. For over 50 years, we have been providing training, assessment and tuition, awareness and advocacy, and made numerous submissions to government for appropriate changes to the education system to help our learners with SLD. So if I'm sounding a little bit frustrated from time to time, I hope you can understand that for 25 of those 50 years, I have been in this organisation and we are still battling for appropriate accommodations. So I like to think that our role as a creator in this kōrero is in creating a better world for individuals with SLD through the practices that we have. We've been the ambulance for families at the bottom of the education system's cliff. We receive no government funding for the work that we do, yet surprisingly, most of the families who come to us have been referred to us by their school. So specific learning disabilities, as probably most of the audience are well aware, are more commonly known as dyslexia, dyscalculia, and dysgraphia. They are diagnostically recognized neurological conditions that affect an individual's brain function in reading, writing, and mathematics. And these conditions are not caused by intellectual disability or issues like poor vision or hearing. In fact, most people with a specific learning disability have at least average, if not above average, or intelligence, or are even gifted, which causes a double whammy. And there are other neurological conditions like ADHD, ASD, dyspraxia that frequently overlap with SLD and fall together in what is often called neurodiversity. So SLD is genetic, you don't grow out of it, but with structured, sequential, evidence-based instruction, the learner with SLD can be taught the skills to read, spell, write, and do math. Some individuals with mild SLD may have few problems navigating the education system, but this is frequently not the case. So what is the problem for us? And that's most learners with SLD are not recognised in the education system. I wonder whether the Ministry of Education even understands the number of individuals with SLD that are currently in the schooling system. These learners are not taught in a manner that meets their learning needs. They have not been given the right support. They're unable to reach their potential in the classroom and then as adults in the community. So this has far-reaching social and economic impact, and the fallout pervades every aspect of society. It's well documented that lack of success in the education system due to an SLD's learners' needs not being met may also lead to problems with early disengagement from learning, poor behaviour, low self-esteem, anxiety, and poor mental health outcomes. So obviously this overlaps in the health sector, but the seeds are sown in education. The Education Hub's recent research findings and the illusion of inclusion on the experiences of neurodivergent children and those supporting them are heartbreaking but unsurprising, and they mirror exactly what families, desperate families, have been telling Spelled New Zealand for decades. You can read their report on our website. As SLD affects learning, it's logical that the education sector take responsibility for providing a nurturing environment for learners, an environment conducive to learning. For too long, learners with SLD have not been well recognised or supported from ECE through to tertiary education. Our children have the right to an education that equips them for life by teaching them to read and write and do math. Our education system therefore has an obligation to teach all teachers, including initial teacher education, to identify learners at risk of SLD and neurodiversity. To teach all teachers, including teachers in training, to effectively teach literacy and numeracy using evidence-based methods. Provide teacher aides with appropriate PLD. Identify learners at risk of having SLD and neurodiversity at the new entrant level and other checkpoints in schooling. Provide safe, supportive, accepting learning environments, engendering belonging and inclusion. Make changes in how learning is delivered, such as structured literacy, delivered at an appropriate speed for learners with SLD. Make changes in how learning is assessed. Make accommodations to address the learning needs of learners with SLD, and thus enable success. And we applaud the introduction of evidence-based structured literacy across all state schools in Kura in 2025 as a move in the right direction for supporting the learning needs of our community. This will teach learners to read in a way that addresses the needs of the dyslexic learners. But unfortunately, that's only the beginning, not the end of the journey, as the needs of the learners with SLD are complex. Kia ora katoa. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your insights. Really, really appreciate it. Kathy, do you want to go next?
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Kathy Pole toko ingoa, ke te mahi o te kāhui wha o te raki pai whenua. No tamaki makaurā hau, no reira, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you so much for inviting me onto this panel, and I have really enjoyed listening so far, but I feel a little bit kind of depressed with the realities that we're all facing. I'm the cluster manager of RTLBs who work across the North Shore. We service 70 schools and there's 33 of us. And we believe education plays a pivotal role in building inclusive communities. Inclusion for us as RTLBs is seeing all students are present at school, actively participating, having a sense of belonging and being able to achieve. We are RTLB and fully trained teachers, and we become RTLB because we know that all kids need a chance to belong, learn and grow in school. In our work, we are passionate advocates for our learners, and we work hard to have their voices and those of their whānau heard. Using an ecological model, we gather data from observing in the classroom, talking with the teacher, the student and their whānau. We listen to their stories and we work together, building a shared understanding and a shared vision, how this can work going ahead. We use this data to help shift the teaching in ways that target those who need it, but also benefit the class as a whole. The neuroscience helps us to explain that learner variability is the norm, and consequently we do need to design our classrooms ensuring all learners have access and are able to achieve. And we've heard from many others on the panel that are saying that this is possible. When working with teachers, we identify the many strengths they have, but also we try and work hard to expand their knowledge on how best to ensure all learners are met. As other speakers have said, we often need to flip the script from one where the student is the problem to one where the learning environment needs to change. If teachers understand that learning variability is the norm, then they can plan for this. It becomes no surprise that learners can contribute in meaningful ways in a classroom. And I guess this is what we're all talking about here today. We know neuroscience can predict learner variability and also inequities, where there will always be those learners who have barriers to learning. But we can design classrooms that can support all learners. And this is a really important part of our work. We are often sowers of seeds, bringing new ways of seeing and doing that can build inclusive communities. Our ecological approach highlights that when we create environments when everyone has a place and access to learning, everyone benefits. We do work hard to dispel misconceptions and can offer flexible tools and resources to support this. But it is hard, and as what other people say, we're still doing this, often one student at a time. But more recently, we've been taking opportunities and working across schools with school leaders and teachers. We've been also working with kahuiako, where groups of schools work together towards common goals, and we find we're getting some really good traction and understanding. Sometimes it does feel like a drop in the ocean, and change can be slow with many of the challenges teachers and schools leaders are facing. More than ever, though, that we believe that changing the classroom environment and establishing school systems and clear values that we all belong can ultimately help transform schools into inclusive communities. We have many schools that are working hard, but we're all facing a lot of misconceptions. And what people are saying is it is a societal responsibility, but we in schools have a huge responsibility. We hear our stories, we hear the stories of the whānau, and we also hear the stories of teachers where they have not had the access to these concepts, these pedagogies of learning and understanding around neurodiversity and disabilities. And that is hard. It's hard for everybody. So for us, we are change agents. We work step by step, and we are reliant on building collaborative processes, on strengthening relationships before we start to introduce change. But we can't do this alone. We need the support of our unions in particular, also the support of school leaders, which we're working with more closely than ever, as they are willing to hear how it works, and we can show them the evidence of how it works and how it can be successful in their school. I think for us, inclusion is a basic human right, and over the last 20 years that I've been working as an RTLB and previous as a teacher, it has become a burgeoning system of denial around what we need to do in our schools. And it's come to the point where everyone is breaking down. We haven't addressed the needs and the rights of everybody in the classroom and in schools. And the only way we can do this going forward is actually supporting one another and working together. And our collaborative efforts and collective experience and tools can get us through this. But it's really now so important that we have the voices of everybody and we have the ears of people who can really make a difference in changing the world for all our people in schools. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy, for sharing your experience in this space. I will pass it on to Rachel now.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Rachel Grant tōku ingoa, ka o te tumu whakahaere kia ka hui tuawhitu o Akarana, kei te noho o ki Tamaki Makaurau and Ngā Mihi. I'm Rachel Grant, I'm the manager of Cluster 7. So like Kathy, I'm a Ngāti Aobe cluster manager. Cluster 7 is sort of central Auckland. We stretch sort of Linfield through to Ponsonby, and we also serve Waiheke and Great Barrier Island. So quite a big area there, and 69 schools in our cluster. It's been really a privilege to listen to everybody this morning. Some amazing insights, and it's quite sobering. As Kathy said, it can be easy to feel a little disheartened that we're still here, but also I think given the the incredible passion and intention here in this Zoom, that taking this out into the world, we can really make a difference. We just keep working. I feel that a huge part of that is changing hearts and minds in schools and in society as well. As lots of other people have said, it's the subconscious. People aren't even aware of the perceptions that they're carrying around, that deficit thinking and those low expectations. That's in teachers, even when they're not aware of it. And it's under the surface in society as a whole, and certainly within our education system. I think there is a feeling that there are some forms of diversity are more acceptable than others. And while we talk about having an inclusive education system, it's not the reality. Inclusion and belonging are more than just a student being there at the school, being enrolled at the school. At most, that might be integration, but it's probably not even really that. It's certainly not inclusion. It must be confining students to parking spaces, in either being withdrawn from classes, being sort of parked with a teacher aide, to get a different level of instruction throughout the day, are all things that we want to move away from and embrace real inclusion. I think there are lots of teachers entering our education system without a real understanding of the rights of the child and rights for persons with disabilities, and understanding how that looks in terms of the New Zealand Disability Strategy and the Education Act. What are their obligations as a duty bearer? What are the rights of the students in their classes? Ensuring that they have high expectations of those students, but also high expectations of themselves. And we have high expectations of the schools. It's not enough to say, sorry, we can't meet their needs, or we're not equipped, or this is a too hard basket for us. Ensuring that new teachers come into schools with a kite of effective evidence-based strategies that are going to meet the needs of the diverse learners in their classrooms. And ensuring that all teachers are staunch champions for the rights of all learners, and truly believe that diversity is a strength, not a problem to solve, but a strength to embrace. We hear in our cluster from schools all the time, they're overwhelmed. It is quite an overwhelming space at the moment in education. And we do hear quite often a new student turns up at the gate, and the principal or the deputy principal or someone will be saying, we just don't know how to meet their needs. We don't know how to support this student. We're not equipped. But that's not good enough. Get equipped. We need to move beyond inclusion as sort of an afterthought. It needs to be, we need to expect and plan for diversity right from the outset. So having those flexible and accessible environments, ensuring that tools are available for all students that need them, and that planning for diversity from the outset rather than as an afterthought. I think there are still some teachers that feel that that children that don't fit that sort of mainstream mold are not their responsibility, or that they're not equipped or qualified to teach them. And so the answer for them is to exclude or to separate or to want to go back to a sort of a special education type model where it's somebody else's job to educate students that are not in that mythical average normal bell curve centre. And obviously that is coming from a deficit place to begin with, but it's also not realistic. Some really desperately want to help, but they're overwhelmed. They don't know how to cater for the many different needs in their classes, and they feel that they have to create multiple different plans, one for each of the students who needs a different level of support or a different approach. And really that, universal design for learning, it's been around for years, and yet I don't see it used in classes nearly as much as it should be. I think teachers understand it in theory, but they don't understand how to put it in practice. So, that would be the perfect opportunity to really have that be the starting point for all new teachers, to have an extreme, a really good solid understanding of what is universal design for learning. How do we start from really knowing our learners and identifying those barriers, and then building in options and choices so that all students have, they can access, they can demonstrate learning in ways that work best for them. And offering those options for all students so that there isn't that segregation and stigma attached to students who need different accommodations. It would be, having that most inclusive, least intrusive options. And then obviously money comes into it. There is not enough money in the system, but if we are able to put some resourcing in, making sure that it's resourcing that builds inclusion rather than separating or stigmatizing or excluding, and ensuring that students' voices are at the centre of all of our decision making, and their whānau, that they've got the ability to be part of that process to identify barriers and set goals and plan solutions. So my three key things are, build understanding, whether that's understanding about rights, understanding about effective evidence-based strategies, and understanding about all learners diversity being a strength, and that all learners have the capability to learn, being proactive, so being getting equipped for all learners from the outset rather than it being an afterthought, and collaboration. And that's collaboration with whānau and students, but also collaboration in settings with other educators. We've got lots of ILEs in place. Many of them, the pedagogy is a little behind the physical setup. And we're finding in our role, we're doing lots of work with groups of teachers in ILE hubs or across teams, where we're actually supporting them to use UDL to plan together for the diversity within their classroom spaces. And it is a huge advantage, but it's not being utilised as well as it could be. We're also offering new teacher workshops that we're just doing our second one at the moment. And we've found that that's a huge need in our cluster, where teachers are coming from overseas, or they're coming into the system, especially teachers that have been teaching 1 or 2 years at this point. They missed quite a bit of practical training over the COVID time, where they weren't in classes for their practicums as much as they might have in the past. And so they're quite unprepared for the realities of a classroom. They might know it in theory, but putting it into practice is a whole other thing. So we're sort of walking alongside them. They've got target students, and we're supporting them to put plans in place that are inclusive in the classroom, and doing modelling and co-teaching alongside them to ensure that they have the best possible start for their first couple of years in the classroom, so we don't lose them, because that's the other thing, is teachers get burnt out and leave the profession. We're also supporting them with understanding which strategies work for which students, and ensuring that they really understand their rights and obligations to meet the needs of all of the students in their classes. And part of that is our funding. We get LSF as part of the RTLB model, and we're utilising almost all of that now in terms of teacher release as opposed to teacher aid funding, which is a big shift. But we're finding that actually enabling the teachers to have some time out of the classroom to actually create a plan that's going to serve the students in their classroom is more sustainable and inclusive, and is going to be more effective long term than putting in some short term teacher aid hours where a student might be excluded or a small group might be taken out of the classroom for a short period of time. So those are just some of the things that we're trying to put in place sort of as a way of addressing some of the problems that we're seeing in the system. But thank you very much for having me be part of this panel. I've really enjoyed listening to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, so much for sharing your insights. I just wanted to quickly thank you all for your valuable work in this space. As someone with a disability, I've experienced a lot of the challenges that you have all talked about. And one of the biggest things that I learned today from this panel, but all the panels, is that we have a long, long way to go. But all the work that everyone is doing in this space gives me a lot of hope and belief that we'll be all right and we'll be there soon. So we've got a couple of questions. If you could answer them in less than a minute, because we're running out of time, that'd be great. So the first question we have is, how much training or emphasis is given to the skill of listening to whānau and children of disability, as every child is an individual with mana? So I'll open it up to the panel, whoever wants to answer that.
Well, I'd quite like to start with that one, because our connections and partnership with whānau are a key part of our work, and we work across school whānau and ourselves to build those connections. Building bridges from whānau to school is often a really important part of our role, as some students have become disenfranchised in the system, and parents are pretty much heartbroken by that, and we experience that a lot. But in terms of doing that, it's taking the whānau voice, but having the whānau voice at our collaborative action plans, where we share our evidence and the data of what we're seeing in the classroom, what are the barriers to learning for the students, and how, using really good strategies that we know teachers can implement with support can work. But we believe student voice and whānau voice is really key to the success of our plan.
Can I quickly, Jaden, just make a comment? Right now, there is no mandate, no absolute guarantee that child and whānau voice is going to be heard. And I think that is something that needs to be considered. People who are in positions to make that happen need to make that happen, because often it is left to the student or the whānau to make sure they are speaking up, and sometimes they have to get quite demanding, and it is not, beneficial, useful for anyone. So creating safe spaces and guaranteeing those spaces to be safe, where student voice, whānau voice is heard, is really essential.
Awesome, thank you. We've got one more question, which is, can SLD screening and treatment be introduced alongside the vision and hearing tests and included in the before school checks?
I'd like to pop in there. So yes, teacher observations in the ECE setting in terms of learning and behaviour of the students, they can be passed on to the school when they transition to the school with the children's notes. They can also be passed on, obviously, at the before school checks. I'm not sure that at the before school check whether they have enough time in that session to do pick up some of the early indicators for SLD and other neurodiversity, but certainly in the ECE setting, without having to do screening tests, if you like, there are observational activities that the staff can do to pick out the indicators of children who are at risk of neurodiversity.
Awesome, thank you. Does anybody else want to answer that?
I can just add in another bit from an early intervention teacher point of view. Often, if you've got a good relationship with the early childhood centers that you work in, teachers will often come and ask you and they'll say, can you have a look at this child? What do you think? And my advice is always to take really good objective observations, pass them along to parents and suggest, that they contact their GP and request a pediatric referral if needed, and sort of take it from there. So anything that people can contribute, people working with the child can contribute with those solid observations that parents can then take away is really valuable. And yes, right now there is a, in the process, there's a phonics literacy, structured literacy sort of check coming along, but that is in schools when children first start. It's in the process of being put in place.
Awesome, thank you all so much for taking the time to speak to us today, and keep up the awesome mahi.
Kia ora.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much. What an awesome panel. Finally, we have Heather Leah, who will be introducing the Doers panel. She is a lobbyist for inclusive education and the director of the Inclusive Education Group. Thank you, Heather.
And thank you, Amy, and thank you, everyone, for all this very rich conversation. Yes, I am the director of the Inclusive Education Action Group, but I'm also a member of the IHC litigation team and have been since 2010. So 16 years that we have had that litigation claim there on behalf of disabled and neurodiverse students, aiming to make the change to an inclusive education system. So it's not just about our day in court, we'll be prepared for that, but in the meantime, it's strategic litigation aimed at having just conversations like this so we all contribute to what needs to change. So look, it's my absolute pleasure today to be mediating this panel and to introduce our three very important doers. So Anne, Mackenzie and Liz. And, discussion today on that really important topic about how we contribute to going forward for an inclusive education system. So perhaps if I introduce first Anne Smell, who is a speech language therapist and the former CEO of TalkLink Trust. So I'll pass over to you, Anne.
Thank you. Tēnā koutou katoa no tamaki makara o noho ana o ki Kamirawai. He kai hapai rio ko leo aho e wahanga tukero ko Anne Smell toko ingoa. I'd just like to start with a whakatauki, which hopefully sort of sets the scene for what we're going to be talking about. Ko toko rio toko aho. Ko toko rio toko mapihi moruya. My language is my awakening. My language is the window to my soul. Mackenzie and I are going to talk today about people who use AAC, and it's a little bit daunting coming after so much wonderful discussion in this hui already, but we just want to highlight, I guess, something that's been a passion for me throughout my entire career, which has been quite long now. In the inspiration I see with being able to support people have a voice and see give them the opportunity to awaken their language, I guess. So just to set the scene a little bit, we want to talk about technology tools and strategies to help with breaking down systemic barriers to inclusion in education. And we're going to probably use the term AAC and people who use AAC. And that refers to all the tools and strategies used to help people communicate. So the TalkLink Trust, for those of you who do not know about us, Wahanga Te Kureo TalkLink has been around for over 30 years now. We have seen lots of changes in that time. We get our funding through Waikaha. Previously, we had contracts with the Ministry of Health, and that's now gone to Waikaha, and also ACC. And we work very closely with our education colleagues in Te Mahau, learning support. And without that support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. We suffer like everybody else with lack of funding and long waiting lists. And I think trying to break down some of the silos between government departments is actually helping with providing better services, so we don't silo people. And that's something that I've been passionate about forever. And one of the reasons why it's so important to really show people that that we shouldn't, continue to work in silos to provide services. I started my journey as a speech language therapist about 40 years ago now, so a long time ago, in what was then the Auckland Education Board Speech Language Therapy Clinic at Mangali Central Primary School. And it was around about the same time that Mangali Hospital, Psychopedic Hospital, closed down. And we suddenly had some people who had never had education going into the education system. And I often think back about that time and think I didn't know anything, and maybe I know a little bit more now, and what difference it would made if we had some of the tools and the strategies that are available to us now to break those barriers. So I guess we have come a long way with inclusive education over that time, but as everybody's been talking about today, we've still got a long way to go. So thank you for putting me in the doer group. I think that I feel that embraces what I like doing. I like going out there and seeing how we can make support inclusive education. And just this week, I've had a few examples that kind of highlight what we've been saying. Yesterday, I went into a high school, a local high school. So I live in Central Otago now. So a wonderful, actually, a high school that's probably feeling very proud of themselves because they have ex-students with 2 Olympic medals. But I happened to be going into a classroom where the principal, Walston, I wasn't expecting the principal to be there when I was working with a student who's trialling an eye gaze communication system to help him with his communication. And he strolled in there, was really excited about the prospect of this communication device that was being trialed and is going to be provided for the student. And just wonderful inclusive feeling within that school. Fast forward to later in the day when I was talking to a specialist teacher in a school saying that one of her students is transitioning next year into another school. He uses an iPad to help with his communication, and the school said that it would be very difficult to get this device hooked up to their Wi-Fi because the school has a policy about using iPads. I'm thinking, wow, that really reflects different attitudes. So as people have pointed out during today, there are pockets of really fantastic things happening and pockets where you think, oh my goodness, yeah, what is happening here? So I'll hand over to Mackenzie now to introduce herself and give a little bit about story about her journey.
Hi, my name is Mackenzie, and I am here as a TalkLink client and ambassador. My education has spanned 4 decades, ranging from preschool and kindergarten to postgraduate study. I have been extremely privileged to have had the support of the TalkLink Trust throughout my education and to have been born at a time when technology has made it possible for me to communicate and participate in mainstream education. Unsurprisingly, I have encountered various barriers in my education. When I was at the start of my education journey, I wanted to go to school full-time before my younger sister started school. This could be seen as an unusual example of sibling rivalry. However, it also shows how I, from a young age, subscribed to the idea that I needed to have my life resemble that of my non-disabled siblings or peers. Growing up, I believed that I could outweigh the disability if I was well educated. From my perspective, this is an ableist mindset, which I have learned from growing up in an ableist society. Now, I am aware that I don't need my life to look like my sisters or friends for my life to be valid. I don't need to diminish my disability or impairment to be successful. Instead, I can embrace my disability and the assistive technology I use. Embracing assistive technology and AAC can be difficult when other people are not accepting of it. For example, 16 years ago, I failed my high school speech simply because I used my communication device. It should be noted that my primary school and intermediate school always allowed me to do speeches and make the finals using various AAC devices. Simply, I was included. In high school, the speech was a formal NCEA assessment. A key part of the assessment was using and adjusting the tone of your voice. As my communication device did not have the capability to speak in different tones of voice, I could not fulfill the assessment requirements. One of the things that I have struggled with, and I think a lot of people will relate, is the thought of why do I have to advocate, or how and why have we not made much progress? The best answer I have at this time is that although there are often many similarities, each situation is completely unique. Nobody has identical abilities and disabilities. Nobody has the same notion of inclusion, and different people have different access to both support and technology. Furthermore, technology is constantly changing and evolving, enabling and disabling different people. For example, today, a student with a communication impairment may be able to use artificial intelligence to demonstrate they know how to use different tones of voice. Similarly, when I was young, my communication device did not have predictive text. This means that my spelling could be assessed fairly and accurately. However, I can see how predictive text could be problematic for today's students.
Yeah, and I'd just like to move on from what Mackenzie's saying there, just about the use of things like artificial intelligence and where that's going to lead us in the future. And I'd like to give the example of a project that we're working on at the moment called Tua o Te Pai. And it is looking at the development of a te reo synthetic voice for use with AAC devices, communication devices, and with a wider, also there'll be a wider application for using things like screen readers, for people who are wanting to listen to Te Reo text, those kinds of things. So it's going to have quite a wide application. We are at the stage now where we have a proof of concept and working closely with Te Huka Media to develop this tool. The biggest barrier that we've come up with, well, there are a lot of barriers that we've faced along the way with this journey. So we're very excited that we now got proof of concept. But to realise this vision, there is the need for a number of things, particularly additional funding, which we have, I naively thought when we first started this project that it was going to be something that everybody would want and funding wouldn't be a barrier, but of course that's me being naive. We have the leader of our the Tuaotu Pai project, Geneva Hakolai-Tino, has been championing this forever really, and I think she now is at the stage where we were almost giving up until we've seen some more developments with the technology. So that's opening avenues, but it's very exciting to see that we will be able to offer things that embrace Te Ao Māori. It means that at the moment it's very difficult to go into Māori medium education environments where we can't offer this kind of technology. But having a synthetic voice is only the beginning of the journey. We're going to then need to look at how this is represented on communication devices and the best way of doing that. And part of that is advocacy, building awareness that these things are available. So that's some exciting developments, I think, that we're seeing with technology, and people realizing that we can break down these barriers. Yeah, so
thank you, Anne. Thank you. That was really exciting and really encouraging to hear all of these developments. And Mackenzie, thank you so much for sharing with us. We are sort of running out of time, so I'd like to pass over to Liz Stenning, who is the Service Manager for Early Supports at CCS Disability Action, and another really important doer in the space. So thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Heather. Morena tātou, ko Liz Stenning aho. I lead the early intervention team in our Auckland branch of CCS Disability Action. We are one of 12 independent early intervention providers around the country. It's been a really great pleasure to be part of this morning and hear all of the speakers who have come before me. So a bit of a hard act to follow. But our independent providers all work under the same contracts with the Ministry of Education. And one of the provision is for specialists who are our early intervention teachers and speech language therapists. And the other contract we work under is for the provision of education support workers. Our early intervention team in Auckland has 6 early intervention teachers and 5 speech language therapists, and about 40 education support workers that are employed by us. And then we also work with about 30 early childhood centres who employ their own education support workers and invoice us for the hours, and we call that the centre employed model. So we support up to 200 children per year. And the children our team have approximately 95% of the OARS applications that we will submit for children are accepted. And if the OARS isn't accepted, it's likely that the high health needs funding will apply instead. Approximately 50% of our children will then go on to attend specialist school, and 50% go on to mainstream. So it has been really great as well to hear the speakers this morning talk about the importance of early childhood education in the education realm. One of our main focuses in the work we do is to support the inclusion of the children in their local early childhood centre. And for the children we support, this more often than not requires the support of an education support worker. So they are the person who actually works inside the centre alongside the teachers, so as the children that we can support can have an ordinary early childhood experience. And what do I mean by ordinary? An experience that can be expected for all children, so that children are able to follow their interests, make choices over what and who they want to play with, make friends, form relationships with adults other than their parents, and also for their families and whānau to feel confident in knowing that their children's needs are going to be met by the early childhood centre. Unfortunately, it's not always as straightforward as that, and I think a lot of that is due to the pressure that early childhood centres are facing with regards to staffing and their own resourcing. But Te Whariki, the New Zealand Early Childhood Curriculum, is an inclusive curriculum for all children, and it says that providing for children with diverse ability and learning needs is part of an inclusive curriculum. Providing an inclusive curriculum requires the adaptation of both teaching approaches and the environment, and recognising what barriers there may be for inclusive participation in learning. And Te Whariki recognises that these barriers come in many forms, not only the physical space and the equipment, but social and conceptual beliefs as well. And I'd also like to add systemic barriers. When I think about inclusion, I see an image of 3 children wanting to watch a sports game. The 3 children are all different heights, and they're separated from the sports field by a really high fence. In the interest of equity, each child is standing on a different height box so as they can see over the fence. But in the interest of inclusion, the barrier, i.e. the fence, is removed, so there's no need for the boxes. As has been mentioned by earlier speakers, the funding is a barrier to inclusion. However, I'd like to draw attention to the way that we provide the support of education support workers. The status quo model, where early intervention services provide the education support worker, in my opinion and experience, sends a mixed message to early childhood centres and teachers. All children, as has been mentioned, are enrolled learners in their early childhood centre, and as such, the responsibility for their learning and belonging does sit with the responsibility of the teachers. However, the additional support which can be integral to a child being able to attend is not within the centre's control or influence. The support coming from an external provider such as ourselves often works against the inclusion and ordinary experience that we are trying to support, as it can often lead to children only being able to attend when support is available, and can also lead to barriers in the children forming relationships with people other than the education support worker. The centre employed model provides for a far more inclusive experience. So when the centre are able to provide a person from their own staff or recruit for a person to join their team, the person providing the support is then a member of their teaching team. The child forms relationships with all of the teachers. And if the person is working additional hours for the early childhood centre during the day, it supports a more natural way of providing support for children in line with the natural routines of the day. I would like to go one step further than our centre employed model and centralise education support funding so as ECEs could access that directly. There would, of course, need to be checks and balances and accountability over how the funding would be used. But I do see this as a step forward towards supporting disabled children being seen as full members of their early childhood centres and being embraced as such. I'd like to leave you with this quote from Lisa Friedman, author of Removing the Stumbling Block. We do not do inclusion. Rather, it is incumbent upon us to go figure out how all the things we do can be inclusive. I'd really like to thank you again for the opportunity to join the panel today. Kia ora.
Thank you, Liz, and thank you, Anne and Mackenzie. That was just really insightful. Sorry. I couldn't agree more in terms of silos joined up and what we need to do to go forward. Look, we've got just time, I think, for a couple of questions. But firstly, we've got Anne wanting to ask a question of the panel. So I'll pass over to you, Anne. So have we got an...
Yeah, we have. She's just wasn't sure if it was her that was going to do the question.
Oh, right.
Yeah, kia ora, everyone. Look, thank you for all the talks. It's been really, really good. Just gathering my thoughts here. So if I think about deaf children with cochlear implants and support staff, I guess there's no problem there. But for hearing children with deaf parents, I also think there might be a gap. So using both languages, meaning English and sign language, within the classroom. But unfortunately, if somebody is profoundly deaf, they might not necessarily be accepted, and they'll be asked to do speech therapy, and I'm not sure why that is. But it's very important for, profound deaf people to learn to lip read and understand those words, but also have the words signed as well. And lots of parents do want that bilingual education, but sometimes it's not offered to them. So, if they do go down that route of having a cochlear implant, then they feel that that's a bit of a black mark against them. And the opportunities to sort of access speech therapy, to the same level of what hearing people are getting and communicating at the same level. So it can be achieved, but I guess for deaf people, we can't hear the sound. We're more focusing on trying to understand what's being spoken, and that can be difficult for deaf children.
Would one of the panelists like to comment, pick up that question from Anne?
I guess I could give it a go because it's a little bit outside. That support would come from my colleagues within education, but I think it's probably the issue with anybody who needs speech language therapy at the moment. There's not enough resourcing, which we've touched on already. I think I'm hearing stories from my colleagues within education where waiting lists are increasing. They're not able to provide the breadth of service that they have in the past. So I think that's certainly those services should be available, and that's what we really need to be trying to advocate for. But yeah.
Thank you, Anne. And I think we, sorry.
Oh, she was
And-
just wanting to respond to
Okay.
that. Sorry.
Of course.
If you think about university lectures and students there are learning to become speech therapists, you know, they're not allowed to learn sign language. It's more focusing on teaching people how to speak. But I think that should be an area that should be accepted, where they are learning oralism, learning to speak, but also sign language. But at the moment, that's not happening. So yeah, that's not filtering out to the community to help our deaf learners.
Well, thank you for those comments and that great discussion. Look, unfortunately, I think we've run out of time for questions and answers, but if the panelists wouldn't mind having a look after in terms of responding to the questions in the Q&A, that would be really helpful. And look, I just want to thank you again for your contribution, the doers, and Mackenzie and Liz. So, and it's been a pleasure to be here and be part of this today. So I am going to now pass back to you, Amy, for the final comments. So thanks, everyone.
Well, hasn't this been an amazing 3 hours? And shockingly, we're only behind by like 4 minutes or so. So yeah. Thank you for the richness and thoroughness of these answers, connecting all the thinkers, the doers, and the make creators, and all of these sections as they come together. I'm just going to close with the karakia and recognizing the work that we've done today. May the peace of the sky above, of the earth below, and the all-embracing universe rest on us all. Behold, it is life. Thank you so much.